All right, so the next methodology that I will be presenting is reverse questioning. And I think you're going to find, particularly content area teachers, this one is a really good one because you can actually use sentences from your textbooks. All right, so the steps, if you look up here, take a look at your reverse questioning step page that you have. You first will choose a sentence or sentences, and you might even want to use a short paragraph, and you'll write it on chart paper. Make sure when you write it on chart paper to leave space in between because you'll be doing some coding for the parts of speech. Or not for parts of speech, excuse me, for the question words and how these questions are answered within the text. Then the next thing you'll do is to review the question words with students, and then you read the sentences with the students, and then with partners, students will develop a question for which the text gives an answer. And then teacher records the question on the bottom of the paper, and then teacher will mark the text, and you can even have the students come up and mark the text where they found the answer to that question, and then students will read all of the questions. The thing I like about reverse questioning is it really relates to, I know that comprehension standard, the first one, which is ask and answer questions about the story or about the information, because we always are asking the questions, and in classroom discourse there's always teacher questions, student answers, teacher's questions, student answers, and they don't get enough practice with asking questions. And actually asking questions for second language learners is difficult because the word order changes. You might start with a verb followed by the subject. I know that my young students would, their questions would be a sentence with a lift at the end. I can go to the bathroom. I get my homework now, and that meant it was a question because they didn't know how to change the word order for asking when they're asking a question. So this is really good for that. Another thing I like about this is it kind of, I think, works really well with close reading because you're looking at, like I said, a sentence or sentences or even a paragraph out of text and looking at it more closely. You're looking at it again for, what information is in the text. So you'll first start off with going over the question words. So when you're asking, because this is another thing that students need to know, when you're starting with this particular question word, what is the information that you're asking about? So a who question is referring to information about a person. A what question might be referring to an action. It might be referring to a noun or to an adjective. So it could be like, what did you do in the morning, referring to an action, or it could be what kind of pet do you have, might be a noun, or an adjective, what does your backpack, what color is your backpack or something. So it could be referring to either of those three things. A where question would be asking about prepositional phrases or location. A when question would be asking about time. Why refers to a rationale, an explanation, or cause and effect. How, for the answer is asking for an explanation of steps. Or frequency, so how often or how many times kind of a thing with frequency. And then which is asking about choice. Which is your favorite ice cream, vanilla or chocolate, which, whatever. So that one's asking about choice. So that way students really know when they're asking, depending on the kind of information they want, that's the question word that they'll start with. All right, so then you have your language objective. I can orally state and write questions based on text. So it's a real simple one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read the text together. So if you'll just follow my pointer. Good. So with your students, you would read that a couple times. You might even switch out, boys read the first sentence, girls read the second sentence, white shirts. I always used to do white shirts and red shirts so that they read it a couple of times. So then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to develop a question. So let's start with who. So looking at that text, I want you to think of what would be a question that starts with the word who that would be answered by the information in the text. So on December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks helped change the course of history by refusing to give up her seat and stand at the back of the bus. She initiated a chain of events that would set off the American Civil Rights Movement. Anna, what was your who question? Okay, so I'm going to write that question. Who refused to give up her seat of the bus? Okay, so that told us the answer for who. Now you might piggyback off of that. Can you create a what question that would be answered by the same information? I love it. What did Rosa Parks do? Okay. So that's how you would use this strategy. And depending on the type of text you have or how deep you want to go into it, you could go through all of those. If it's something that you've been doing with students, you could pass out question words to pairs. You guys are going to work on the how question. You guys are going to work on the why question, that kind of a thing, so that students take turns. And then once you have all your questions here, then you could review the questions. So students are getting, I love this strategy because you see students are getting practice in close reading. You're talking about comprehension. You're talking about sentence construction. You can even, if you want to go through and pull out the parts of speech in the text, you can do that. There's so much you can do with reverse questioning.